when your kid is asking you about what they can be when they grow up and you tell them anything they want to be and you're not doing it, you're a freaking fraud. You're a fraud.
Oof.
So set the tone and set the example that mommy or daddy prove to you that you can do anything you want. And stop telling your kid that they can do anything they want if you're not willing to go out and do it for yourself. It's a lie. So use that as the stick. Your kids will emulate you. You could tell them stuff till you're blue in the face, but they watch what you do. They watch how you operate. So if you're not setting the example, they know. They're not dumb.
Yeah.
They know if you're settling. They know if you hate your job and you're just going. You're teaching them that, hey, it doesn't matter. You have to make money. So suck it up. You're going to have to go get a job that you don't like to pay the bills. That's the example that you're setting. And it's a lie. So be the example. Find ways to get leverage on yourself.
At some point, you realize the numbers you're hitting aren't measuring the life you're living. Welcome to Quit the Quota. I'm Darryl Miedico.
And I am Marya Ryan. This is the podcast for professionals, especially sales professionals, who've done what they were supposed to do and still found themselves questioning whether that version of success really fits.
Each episode features honest conversations with people who stepped outside the traditional mold, along with reflections from our own years in the corporate world.
Quit the Quota isn't about quitting ambition. It's about defining success on your terms. Hi, Darryl.
What's going on, Marya? We're on. We're going.
We're rolling. Happy Friday. It's Friday here for us. I don't know what it is for everyone listening, but end of a long week. I feel like this week was a doozy for some reason.
Well, we got 2 feet of snow. We got one of the largest storms ever up here in New England, which was absolutely insane. Patriots are going back to the Super Bowl, which is outstanding. I know a lot of people are going to hate to hear that.
Oh yeah.
It's like we thought we got rid of them. No, you didn't get rid of us. We're back.
Yep.
It'll be a tough game though. Seattle's got a really good team, so
I'm excited for that. We got so I'm in the Mid-Atlantic region, and we also got snow. And my kid, who is a junior in high school, hasn't had school. They just had a delay today, but they haven't had school all week. My daughter goes to University of Maryland, no school all week. I mean, we just came to a screeching halt. We don't know what we're doing down here. Yeah. Yep. So we have a guest today.
We do have a guest today. I am super excited. I had little sleep last night. I've been thinking about this all day today, all morning. Super excited for our guest today. I think it's gonna just be a phenomenal episode. It's one of my earlier mentors that helped get me, through my barriers and through the things that blocked me out. And he just has a ton of wealth, a ton of wisdom around, this particular subject of how do I get out? How do I quit the quota? How do I, get out of my 9-to-5, the 9-to-5 rat race? So yeah, I'm pumped. I don't think we should really wait much longer. Honestly, I'm super excited.
All right. Do you want to?
So real quick, just to intro before he gets here. He's an entrepreneur, owns multiple businesses, has multiple ventures. He's a mindset coach, short-term rental coach. Does a ton in the short-term rental space and the mindset coaching space, and for him, this whole Quit the Quota began, a few years before me, and he's just an amazing human being that really cares. So I without further ado, I want to bring on Mike Sjogren. Can we do that?
Absolutely. Ready? The man, the myth, the legend.
Here
he is.
You guys are going to make me blush, man. Thanks for having me. Jeez.
I'm just super pumped to have you on the show, dude.
I'm excited to be here, man. When you guys told me that you were doing this, I'm like, sign me up. I'd love to jump on and chat with you guys. So congrats on the launch and getting this thing rolling.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
So for us, I mean, this show is all about talking through, the challenges that, folks might have to quit their quota, to leave their W-2, the journey with that, leading up to it, during it, after it, some folks out there that might be in the middle of it. So, I mean, you and I have had 5 phenomenal years, as, you as a leader for me, as a mentor, as a partner, so could think of no one better than have on the show than yourself to be able to help others. And I know you're all about serving others as well. So I'm super, super pumped.
Yeah, man, you're talking my love language here. The whole freedom game is what I call it. That's what it's all about. And, yeah, I'm happy to take it which way you guys want to go and just add as much value as I can for the listeners that are in that spot, whether it's early on and you're like, I got to make a change, I got to get the hell out of here, or you're creeping up on that date and you're freaking out in your head about all the what ifs, or maybe you're out on your own already and now you're like, okay, now what do I do? How do I create some structure? What should I be doing with my time? Like, what's the next step? Like, where do I go from here? So
love it.
Take it wherever you guys want to go.
Love it. I think one of the things that really like jumped out at me and caught my attention, like from the day that we first spoke, really from the first video that I saw of yours, which was oddly enough a podcast, was your story, like your genesis of how you got into the motivation to quit your quota, to leave your job. So, and pursue this life of entrepreneurship, wealth, abundance. Could you talk through that a little bit, just for the listeners that had probably never heard of you or never met you before?
Yeah, for sure. So, I did what they told me to do growing up, right? I went to school, I got good grades, I played sports. I got a quote unquote good job, a safe job, studied accounting in my undergrad, got a job at a CPA firm, went back to grad school, got my MBA, got my CPA license, did everything they told me to do, put 10% in a 401k. And I thought I was, on the path, right? We were comfortable. I had a decent income, little house in the suburbs, couple cars in the driveway, beautiful wife. And everything changed when our son was born. So picture this. It was a complicated pregnancy. She went 2 weeks late, emergency C-section, all this crazy stuff. Spent like a week in the NICU. And then we finally get home, and we're home for probably 5 days. And we were getting up early one morning for his newborn photo shoot. So we're all excited. She's got a gazillion outfits lined up, for the photo shoot. And I go into his nursery to take him out of his crib and to get him dressed. And when I walked in, I was like, this is kind of weird, because he was a terrible sleeper and he was sleeping. And so I'm like, all right, I reach down, I pull him out of the crib, and I've got him on my shoulder and I'm just kind of patting his back a little bit. I'm like, all right, buddy, time to get up. We got to get dressed, blah, blah, blah. And he's still sleeping. And I'm like, this is so weird. And then my wife comes in and I'm like, yeah, he's still knocked out. Like, finally, of course he's sleeping when we don't want him to. And she looks at him and I just see the color drop from her face. And she goes, call 911, something's wrong. And mom always knows, right? Like, I'm just the dumb new dad. I'm like, I don't know, he's just sleeping. And she immediately knew something was wrong. So I called 911. She's like, he's blue around his lips. He's way too pale and we can't wake him up. And I could feel him breathing like lightly against my body. So they're like, get him in the car right now. We're going to call an ambulance and you're going to meet up with them along Route 1, but we need to get you into Children's Hospital immediately. And so I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. So I'm running downstairs. I get everybody in the car. I'm going 90 miles an hour down Route 1 on my way to Children's Hospital to rendezvous with this ambulance. And the whole time, like, we cannot get him to wake up in the car. My wife's sitting in the back seat, just like lightly shaking him, like, wake up, wake up. And finally we pull into this roast beef shop, pull into this parking lot, rendezvousing with an ambulance. And I'm watching all these people take my baby out of the car, put him on this little gurney stretcher, and start immediately like putting oxygen on him and starting to do a little like CPR on him. I'm like, what is happening right now? And I'm just in shock at this point. They get in the ambulance. My wife gets in the ambulance and they're like, just follow us. So I'm driving all the way into Boston. And by the time I finally found them at Children's, they had been able to resuscitate him and wake him up and all this stuff. But that day, I will never forget that day. It was awful, but it kicked off this 2-year journey of us spending weeks and weeks and weeks at a time at Boston Children's Hospital trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And eventually we found out that he had a very rare lung disease called interstitial lung disease. So basically, anytime he fell asleep, his oxygen would get dangerously low and he needed to be on oxygen. And so they kept having to do all these tests and try and figure out what they could do for treatment and all these different things. And while all this is going on, after months and months of being in the hospital, like, I got to a point where doctors were coming in one morning, spent another night sleeping in the chair at the hospital. And as they're coming in, giving us their daily prognosis, the only thing I could think about is I've got all these medical bills piling up. I'm out of vacation time. I'm out of sick time. And I got to leave my wife and my baby in this hospital to go back to a cubicle and trade time for money. And I was so pissed at myself for putting my family in this situation when they needed me the most. I couldn't be there with them. And it friggin' broke me and lit this fire under my ass that I was like, I am going to find a way. And I told my wife when I left that day, I made her a promise. I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to find a way to build us a business that gives us the income we want without ever trading time for money again. And it kicked off this journey of just this relentless pursuit of financial freedom. And I thought initially it was going to be through multifamily apartments, and I was paying these coaches on credit cards to try and figure out how could I go buy some apartment buildings, because I needed to replace a good income. Like between the two of us, it was probably 15 grand a month that I needed to replace. I'm like, I'm going to have to do something really big, like go buy an apartment building with investors or something. And I tried that for over a year. And I had already been probably $30,000 in debt to different coaches. And it just wasn't working for me. And then I met a gentleman in a mastermind group that was doing short-term rentals. And this is like 2017 now at the time. And he was telling me that he was making anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a month on these properties that he didn't even own. And this was before Airbnb was super popular, before it was like the hot new thing. And he was doing what we now know as rental arbitrage. So he'd go rent this apartment from a landlord, he'd furnish it, and then he'd re-rent it on Airbnb. But I was like, I don't even know if this is legal. Like, this doesn't make sense. He wasn't telling the landlords what he was doing, but he showed me his QuickBooks and he was making really good money. So I'm like, all right, this Airbnb model makes sense to me, but I don't like what this guy's doing. So I told my wife, I said, all right, the apartments aren't working. I'm going to pivot to this Airbnb thing. You got to trust me. I'm going to cash out the 401k. I'm going to get a couple more 0% interest credit cards, and we're going to go all in on this Airbnb thing. And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, yes, like this is a thing. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make it work. And so we bought this little 2-bedroom condo up in the mountains in New Hampshire, renovated it myself with my dad on credit cards. And just like this guy said, I launched it in February of 2018. And it started cash flowing about $1,500 a month after all expenses. And I was like, this is sick. Like this is the ticket. If I can make $1,500 a month, all right, I need 10 more properties. Big problem now. I am more than broke and in debt up to my eyeballs, and I can't live off of $1,500 a month. I need 15 grand. And so I started thinking about all of those investors that I had met over the years that were doing long-term rentals in apartments, and they're making $100 to $300 a month per door. I'm like, man, I could make them so much more money if they would just do this. And so I started pitching a lot of these local real estate investors like, hey man, you've got this 3-family. If you let me run one of these units as an Airbnb, like I'll design it, I'll furnish it. You just pay for the furnishing, but I'll go build it out. I'll do everything. I'll create the listings. I'll take the pictures. I'll communicate with the guests, and I'll just take a percentage off the top. And you're going to make way more money this way, and you'll be completely passive. And in my mind, that made total sense. But at the time, again, Airbnb wasn't very big, and a lot of people thought it was a scam. So I started hosting my own meetup. I was cold calling people off of Zillow, off of Craigslist. I was door knocking, and month after month after month, rejection. And right around the 7-month mark, I'll never forget this. I was still at my job, and they had these trails behind the office that I used to go and run at like 4:30 in the morning before work. And I was running this trail, and I get to the top of this hill, and the sun's starting to come up, and I just broke down. Like I was just so beaten down. And I was like, I am giving this everything I've got, and it's just not working. And I don't know what the hell to do. Like, I put my family in this huge financial hole. My kid is still in the hospital. My wife is with him, and I'm just failing. And I just broke down. And honestly, I just started like praying. I'm like, just give me something, man. Like, I just need a freaking break. And the next day, nothing happened. The next day, nothing happened. And I kept doing what I was doing. Finally, a month later, I was hosting one of my meetups, and I met a gentleman at the meetup that gave me a chance. And he's like, all right, let's give this thing a whirl. So it took me 9 months to get that first co-hosting deal. But once I got that first one, I ended up getting 4 more within the next 2 months. So I finished the year with 5 properties, including mine, 5 or 6 properties. And then in 2019, I finally got some momentum, and I got to 15 properties. I was able to get my wife out of her job. I quit my job. And in January 2020, I was out of the rat race, and I had a lot of momentum behind me. But that first year was just so brutal. The first 2 years really was just insane. And so I tell people all the time, like, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, but it was honestly the best gift that I ever got, because if I wasn't in such pain and so driven to get out, I don't think I would have stuck through it. I would have been like, well, it wasn't meant to be. I'll have to figure something else out, and then rinse and repeat. And you go to the grass is greener over there. So that pain was that fire, man. And it just got me out. And I've just been super passionate about helping other people that are stuck figure out a way to get out of their jobs. And so I started coaching on this stuff back in 2019, did the podcast in 2020. And at this point, I've coached thousands of people, specifically in the short-term rental and boutique hotel space, on how to escape the rat race. And so it's kind of where we're at.
It's amazing.
Oof. What a story.
It's amazing.
Unreal. Yeah. How's your
and the best part, my kid is completely healthy. I was just
going to ask, how's your son now?
3 sports. Yeah, ironically, about a year and a half into this whole entrepreneurial journey, again, this is a story for another day, but he literally just snapped out of it like overnight. And that's a whole other story that led me down another rabbit hole around mindset and energy and all this other stuff. A lot of Joe Dispenza type stuff. But
I get a strong,
we can do a whole other podcast on that.
I was going to say, I got a strong gut feeling that we're going to talk again over the course of this podcast. So we'll save that one, because that's a phenomenal story in itself right there. Every time you tell that story, brother, I get emotional, along with you. You could tell it 1,000 times. And I know, like, I obviously wasn't there. I don't know specifically how that was for you. Right. I can empathize and sympathize with it, because, I know I had an extreme emotional event, right, that led me to my journey. And, one thing that I heard recently is, all too often people start with the strategy, right? They're like, oh, I want to get out of my W-2, or I want to go do something big, and they start thinking of how I'm going to do it or what I'm going to do. Right. And it's backwards, actually. Like, you shouldn't really start with that. You got to start with the state of mind. You got to start with, the feeling of it. And there's really only 2 ways to get it. And one of them is the extreme emotional event. And within that time of challenge and pain is when you're going to really, you can grow, or you can recede into the shadows. Right. And, you took that time and you grew, dude, exponentially, like life-changing, generational, life-changing, and I'm super blessed to be able to like see that and just, watch you do that.
I appreciate it. One other concept I'll share with people real quick on that, and I didn't run into this until later, years after I was out, and I was like, man, this makes so much sense. And it's called the psychology of change. So you come across this new opportunity. In my case, it was real estate and Airbnbs. So you start out, picture this like giant U-shaped curve. So you start out on the top left, and you're at a new stage, new opportunity. You're all excited about it. And you're in uninformed optimism, meaning this is it. This is going to be amazing. This is going to change my life. I'm super excited about this. And it's going to be great. Right. And then you start acting on that thing. And then you move into the next stage, which is informed pessimism, where you're like, shit, this is way harder than I thought. Right. And you keep going and you keep going, and it keeps getting harder for a while. And you start to lose momentum. And then you bottom out in this phase called the valley of despair. And this is where most people give up. This was my morning run when I was ready to break, where it's like, what am I doing? Like, what am I here for? Like, what is the point of this? And if you don't have a strong enough why, this is when people quit, because you're just like, I'm trying here. Like, I am genuinely trying. I am putting in the work, and it's just not working. Right. But if you can push past that phase and keep putting one foot in front of the other, eventually you get a little wind in your sail, and you get it to informed optimism, meaning, okay, I got past this challenge, this obstacle, and it does work. And then you keep going and you keep going, and then you have lasting change. But every phase of growth in your business, whether you're starting or you're scaling, you're going to go through these hurdles and this whole psychology of change, from the uninformed optimism to the informed pessimism to the informed optimism. And it's just something to be aware of, and why I harp on people of really getting clear on what you want and why you want it. Because if you just go without that foundation, you're going to run into challenges. I don't care what business or endeavor it is. And if the why isn't strong enough behind it, you will quit. You just will. It will break you. So you got to know why you're doing it from the jump.
Yeah. Dude, that's powerful. That's amazing stuff. So from your perspective, if you have, well, actually, I know for you specifically, you had visions of entrepreneurship prior to the extreme emotional event with your son.
Oh yeah.
Right. It was kind of like a hunger for you. You were driven for it. What were maybe like one or two or three things that maybe held you back prior to, like, we know why, like, we know what your why was. That's super clear. But prior to that, I'm thinking of someone like you were, like myself. You kind of had this gut feeling of, I could be doing something else. I could be building for myself. I could be doing something different or better. But there seems to be, one or two things that just kind of held you back prior to the extreme emotional event. What were those for you prior to? Do you recall?
I mean, I knew in 2014 that I wanted to build something on my own. I told this story at STR WealthCon over the summer of, like, I was a couple years out of school, a few years out of school. I had my MBA, my CPA, things were going well. And my wife's best friend started dating this guy. And the first time I met him, they came over our house. Again, we're in our, I don't know, probably 24, 25. And I remember I'm sitting on the couch eating a sub on a Friday night, like, as these kids get to my house, and I'm watching some movie or playing a video game or something. And so I started talking to this guy, and I'm like, so what do you do? He's like, oh, I'm an HVAC tech. I work on these really nice properties in Boston and do HVAC work. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And he's like, yeah, but I've got this business on the side where I build websites for small businesses. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And being nosy, I'm like, well, out of curiosity, like, how's that going for you? He's like, it's pretty good, man. Like, I'm making an extra like $5 to $10 grand a month on the side building these websites. And I'm like, whoa. You're making $5 to $10 grand a month extra on the side just doing this, like, after work. And he's like, yeah. And that was like my first light bulb moment of, like, what if I could build a business that could give me extra income? Because again, like, since I was little, I was always a good student. I work hard, play hard. And it's like, this is the path. You're going to go into corporate, and if you work hard enough, you'll get little pay bumps and then promotions and all this other stuff. And that one conversation changed the trajectory of my life. And so then I got a copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad somehow. I read that. I started this photography business. And it's funny, I did a webinar last week, and I found the very first check I ever got from that photography business right here. I still have it. May 21st, 2014 for $250. And it was the best. I don't want to I've been fortunate to make good money over time through different things, but that 250 was the biggest life-changing money I've ever met, because it just proved to me that I could actually take my income into my own hands and control it for the first time ever. And so I knew I wanted to get into building more bigger businesses and all this other stuff. And ironically, that business is still going today. I don't take the pictures anymore, but it's still going, 11 years, 12 years later. But I think the missing piece, Darryl, to your original question is it was a nice to have instead of a must. And so if you really want to make a big change, what has to happen is you have to embody this new identity of who is the person that has this lifestyle. And I just didn't know any of this, right? I was in the tactical. I was getting the tactical coaching of, here's the scripts you use, here's how you analyze the data, here's how you talk to investors, all of the mechanical stuff that's important. But I didn't do the internal work, one, to make a decision that this is a must, and this is the new version of me that shows up with confidence. And a simple example to bring this home for people is, if I was out at a networking event and somebody asked me, what do you do? I would just puke out, I'm a CPA, immediately. It would just come out. And then a friend of mine called me on that. He was like, hey man, you're not a CPA anymore. You are a real estate investor first. Just because you have a CPA license doesn't matter. But my identity was still tied as a CPA. I hadn't fully bought in that I was a real estate investor. Once I started doing more of that identity and self-image work, that's when things started to take off for me. And that's when real change started to happen. So I tell people all the time, you need to do both. You need the professional development, like the tactical coaching, and you need the personal development, because your income will always be capped at whatever level your self-image is set at. So if Dean Graziosi uses this analogy of your internal thermostat, your identity is your internal thermostat. So if your thermostat set to $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, whatever you're normally used to making from a job, if you want to increase that income or replace that income in this new field, you have to do the work internally to identify as a person that makes $200,000 a year as a real estate investor. And there's a whole other path that you need to go down to develop that in your mindset and in your subconscious. Because until you do, you'll always push up against a ceiling of resistance. So.
You said something earlier about you did the right stuff. You went to school, you had the house, you had a couple cars in the driveway, you had the beautiful wife, you now had the young son. You were doing everything, I'm putting in quotes, right.
Mm-hmm.
I think and that's part of what I'm passionate about, because that's what I think a lot of us do, right? And that's what we're taught to do. If you're talking to somebody who's just thinking about these concepts for the first time and realizing that they are trading time for money, how would you help someone to see that there is something beyond, because I think sometimes there's some shame in that, right? Oh, my parents spent all this money to put me through college, or, my dad, he's my idol because he's worked so hard and he was always home for me and always there for me. But how do you balance that with your own personal, hey, there's something in here, but I have to do this. I got to do this, and I got to keep the lights on. Do you follow what I'm asking?
100%. I learned this lesson pretty early. It's funny, last week I celebrated 20 years of sobriety. So I got sober when I was 19 years old.
Wow. And
I learned very quickly that your environment matters. And so when you get sober at 19 as a college student, okay, you learn very quickly that if you want to maintain sobriety and change how you, really who you are, you need to change your environment. And so I went from hanging out with a bunch of 19, 20, 21-year-olds to hanging out with grown men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that had successful businesses and they had been sober a long time, and hanging out with that crowd and getting away, leaving the environment that I was in to tee me up for more growth and to support that growth. And if you look at any movie, like any famous movie, there's this concept in the movie called the hero's two journeys, right? So like if you look at, I don't know, Harry Potter, right? Harry Potter starts out where he's living with his aunt and uncle in this house. His life sucks. Internally, he's feeling like he's meant for more. And all of a sudden he notices that he starts to have these gifts. And he doesn't get to cultivate those gifts until he leaves the home and goes to a new environment that can help foster those gifts. It's the same thing in life, right? I love my parents. They've always loved and supported me, even when I was a knucklehead and all this stuff, but they can't give me what they don't have, right? Neither of them went to college, so they busted their ass working multiple jobs to be able to help pay for me to go to college, because that's what they thought was going to tee me up for a better life. So I went and I did that. Then when I got into entrepreneurship and I'm working 60 hours a week in my 9 to 5, plus working another, I don't even know. I mean, I was just not sleeping for 2 years between my kid in the hospital and building this business on the side. You know, I ended up hospitalized myself 3 or 4 times between 2019 and 2020 with anxiety attacks. And, you know,
Wow.
Everybody that was close to me, you know, my wife, my mom, my parents are like, Michael, you gotta tone it down. I know this is important to you, but like, it's not worth it. It's not worth your health. Like, you gotta relax. You gotta slow down. It's killing you. Fortunately, I also had a support group and a mentor on the other side over here that was like, dude, suck it up, buttercup. Like, you're not done yet. You just got to get past this wall and you're going to be good. But if you quit now, it was all for nothing. So you need to get in the right environments with people that will support, encourage, and challenge you, people that have been where you want to go and been through what you're going through now, that can push you past it and not let you off the hook. And those people that were, you know, my family, they did that because they love me, obviously.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
But they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
And so for those of you that are going through it right now and everybody around you is telling you you're nuts, you got to change your environment. You got to change the people you're hanging out with. And I'm not telling you, you got to cut off your parents or your spouse or whatever else, but you need to be intentional with making sure that you're getting in groups and in rooms with people that will support, encourage, and challenge you to keep going when you want to give up, honestly, because that's what's going to pull you through.
Love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's, I mean, both those things hand in hand, right? Your why, the state of mind, right? Plus your environment together. All you need after that is just a couple brain cells between your ears. Like, you don't need much. Like, I make the joke that I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not an Elon Musk. I'm not a Bill Gates, right? I'm not brilliant. But I had a why, I had a very strong why. And then I was fortunate enough to meet you and be like, oh, he has a phenomenal community over here. And I mean, all the things you're talking about. I remember my first sales call. All right. My first sales call, my first guy I went to, I think I told you the story, right? I don't know if I have. First guy I tried to pitch. So I just signed up for the program. I'm like, all right. I went through some of the training. I was in the group. I'm like, people are doing great things. I got a bunch of pace setters around me. This is phenomenal, right? All right, yeah. Oh man, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm all in. This is it. Everyone's gonna think this is the best thing ever. The first guy I reached out to, all right, Greg. I'll just say Greg for now. He'll know who he is. Still a great. He's a great friend. Reach out to Greg. I'm like, Greg. Like, we worked together at a past company. He's got some multis out there. Like, Greg's my guy. Greg's my guy. I'm gonna pitch this, and he's gonna be like, let's do it. And I got done pitching it to him, and his exact words to me were, how much did you pay for this program? Are you crazy? You're gonna do what? You're gonna leave your job for this craziness? He goes, I would never do this. I would like, what are you doing, Darryl? Like, so, and I'm like, okay, I hung up. it was a gut punch. I'm like, oh, what the heck? Like, he's my guy. But my why was strong enough. I had a great group, great people around me. And I said, all right, he's just the wrong guy. He's still my guy. He's just the wrong guy for this right now. No big deal. Let me take what he taught me, the objections that he gave me. This is why it doesn't make sense. Let me get better at explaining, or at least getting ahead of that, of why it does make sense for the next person I speak to. Because I'm not done. I'm not done doing this. I spoke to another, and then just kept learning. And I think, we talk about this a lot, right? You get, the universal fears, right? The fear of criticism is huge. It's huge. We have egos. Human beings have egos, right? And it's so incredibly important to check the ego at the door, especially when you're going after a new venture. And expanding your mind and accepting the idea of bigger and greater things. And I know you talk a ton about that, and you embrace it, you live it, you embrace it, right? And that's why, things continue to grow and get better for you and those around you, right? So, so for you specifically, Mike, let's say you had someone maybe a little further on down the path, right? Okay. So we've kind of talked through a little bit, the genesis. We talked through maybe some things that held us back, right? Let's say we get someone a little further down the path of entrepreneurship. They've got something that's kind of percolating, so to speak. All right, it's kind of working, right? But it's not getting to that next level, right? And they're stuck. They're stuck right now, right? They want to leave the W-2, but it's not quite there yet.
Okay.
How would
smile?
I know, because yeah, because we
talk
about these things
every day. So
and I love it. And anyone, like, this is gold. I'm just telling you right now, because just listen, take notes. This is gold. What would you tell to that person, right? That's just like they're making a little bit of money, but they can't leave their W-2. They're stuck.
So there's a couple of things. One, I want to share a framework that I put together a couple of years ago. Again, I've done a lot. I've hired a ton of coaches. I've been in a lot of different masterminds, not just in real estate, but a lot of different businesses. And I put together this framework that we talk a lot about at STR Secrets now, called CASPER. And this is the framework that I use to start and scale any business. And CASPER stands for clarity, like understanding what you want, why you want it, and how this vehicle is going to get you there. The second is acquisition. So now that you're clear on where you're going and what you want with this business, now you need an acquisition system to generate business. You need clients or whatever it is that this business serves, whether it's selling widgets or servicing clients, you need clients. So you need an acquisition system. Once you're getting some clients, you need process and systems. So you need systems, like repeatable systems. Because at the beginning, somebody that may be in that stage, maybe you got a few clients or you're making some money, but you're running out of time, where you're just going and you're grinding just like the best of them, where you can push yourself. But there's only so many hours in the day, right? And this is what they don't teach you in school, is like, you just work harder. It's like, well, no, I know a lot of people that work really hard that are broke. That's part of it, but you have to be working on the right stuff to keep going, right? So you need systems and repeatable processes, right? That gets you some time back, especially now with all the AI and all this stuff. That's great. Once you get past the systems and processes, then you need people to execute on those systems and processes so you can elevate to work on the business instead of in the business. Once you get the people in place, then you need to elevate out of the operations and bring on that mid-level management. So then you are outside of the day-to-day operations and fully focused on strategic, and that middle level management is coaching and empowering the people below them. Once you elevate and truly get into that like COO, CEO role, then you get to reassess of like, okay, are we on the path? Do I need to make adjustments? Is this still what I want? Do I want to exit this business? I don't care what business it is. That is the flow. Clarity, acquisition, systems, people, elevate, reassess. Right? So that's the flow. If you are stuck right now and you want to leave your job, few things that I suggest. One, I'll reiterate, getting in the right environment to support you leaving is huge. I'm going to call you out, Darryl. Coercing you to get out of your job took some work, right? And then the universe delivered.
Yep.
That's
right?
okay. Guess what? You did that, so then he did that to me. So
well, and just hold the thought, because you're spot on. My clarity wasn't strong enough. My clarity wasn't good. Remember what my initial goal was? My initial goal was to create a third stream of income because I wanted to stay in my job. So my clarity sucked. My goal wasn't aligned. And then I go, oh, I really like what I'm doing. I want to go do this.
I feel like I remember the moment that it clicked for you. And I think Ashley was there too. It was at like the February boardroom event like 2 years ago, or maybe even 3 years ago.
3 at this point.
Yeah. I think it was 3. And I remember like we were talking about some stuff, and then we had some other speakers in the room, and I could just see the wheels turning. And I'm like, all right, I think it's finally getting in there. And from that point, I think you were around 20 or 25 properties at the time. And within the next year, man, like you took off to a different level after that event.
Yep. It
was like you just got laser focused on what you wanted in the new backyard for Ashley and all this other stuff. And I just watched it just take off from there. So again, like without that clarity and then the right environment to support it, of like, we all, at the end of the day, we're all governed by the beliefs that we have. And those beliefs stem from the environment that we grew up in, right? So some of us grew up in households where, you know, it was looked down on to be flashy or to have money or to pay people to do stuff for you. You know, I remember growing up, my neighbor owned a business, and he hired a landscaper to cut his lawn. And it was always like, oh, really? Like, that's so ridiculous. He can't even cut his own lawn. But what he knew that we didn't know is his time was more valuable building the business than it was to spend $100 to pay somebody to cut his lawn. Right? But those beliefs, they hold us back. And so what you really get when you work with coaches and masterminds and go to events is it expands your belief system and it challenges your belief system. Once those beliefs change, everything starts to line up. I remember it took me at least 6 months to convince my wife to hire a housekeeper for the house. At least, because it was like, that's so ridiculous. Why would we pay somebody to clean the house? And I was like, all right, let's look at the math here of, let's just take our tax return from last year and figure out how much we made on an hourly basis. This is what our time is currently worth. If I can pay somebody X for X number of hours a week to do this, not only is it enabling us to go make more money, but more importantly, I get 3 hours a week back to hang out with you and the kids. To me, that's a worthy investment. And when you start shifting your perspective that way to buy back more of your time, to focus on higher level things or to spend more time with your family, like that's when things start to change. But those beliefs, man, they're insidious in there.
It's like shame almost that you just described.
100%. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
You know, I remember a few years ago, I bought an Escalade for myself, probably 3 years ago. And I remember when I got it, we were hanging out with some people and I could feel my wife was uncomfortable because people were like, oh, like Mr. Fancy Pants driving an Escalade, right? And it's like, I had a longtime friend from college come up to me one day, and he used to make these little remarks. And he'd be like, so like, how rich are you now, man? Like just trying to bust my chops, like trying to pull. He's not doing this consciously, by the way. This is on his subconscious. But what he's trying to do is pull me back down so that he can feel better about himself. And I looked him dead in the eye after months of making remarks like this. And I was like, I'm pretty effing rich, dude. And I just sat there in the silence and just looked him in the eye. Like, I'm not going to apologize for busting my ass for the last 5 years to make good money. Anybody can do this. You just don't want it bad enough. Period. As bad as you want to breathe, as Eric Thomas used to say. And I did.
Yep.
And that's the only reason I'm here.
I have an interesting thought though. Sorry, Darryl, totally cutting you off. Because Darryl and I actually talked about this last week when we did a conversation or another podcast where there's you have the emotional event, which then creates that really powerful why. But what if it's not there, but you still want change? Do you have to have this crazy thing happen to make you do the jump?
No. So like Darryl was alluding to this earlier. So there's Tony Robbins talks about this. Like, I'm not that smart. I just model successful people. So Tony Robbins talks about this at all of his events. There's 2 ways to change your identity. 1, extreme emotional event, like we talked about, or 2 is repetition of thought. Okay. So what I mean by that is creating a clear image, right? Say you're making 20 grand a month right now in a job and you want to become a millionaire real estate investor. Okay. Creating a clear image of what your day-to-day life looks like as a millionaire real estate investor. How do you dress? How do you walk? How do you talk? How do you feel internally as that person? Are you more confident? Do you dress differently? Where do you live? Who are you hanging out with? How do you make decisions? Getting really clear. Arnold Schwarzenegger, love him or hate him, I would highly encourage all the listeners to watch that 3-part documentary on Netflix. He says in there, he's like, I'm not that smart. I work really hard, but I figured this thing out when I was young, where all you do is create a picture of who you want to be, and then you live into that picture as if it were already true. That sums up the law of attraction and how energy and manifestation works in the simplest form. So if you're not going through an extreme emotional event, you need to create your goal needs to be so exciting for you that you have a burning desire to achieve it. And then you just start living like you already have it. You're probably, the habits and the way that you operate now are not the habits and the way that you're going to operate as that next level person, which is the whole reason why you learn to overcome these obstacles along this journey. It's creating growth in you. If you want to build muscle, you go to the gym and you lift until those muscles tear and then they rebuild and get stronger. It's the same in business. You're going to hit obstacles and they're going to make you stronger. Or you can give up and not do that last rep and then you don't grow. So creating that image of the life that you want and who you are becoming, and then live like you're already that person. I'm not telling you you need to go out and buy an Escalade or anything else, but maybe you can try this out. Next time you go to Starbucks or wherever you go to get your coffee, maybe you tip the barista $10 and see how that feels. Maybe you start to give a little bit to charities. Maybe you start to act more abundant where you can. Maybe go test drive the car that you actually want to drive. And then anytime you're driving your current car, you're not driving that car anymore. You're seeing yourself driving the Range Rover or whatever the hell you want to drive. Start living and feeling like that person. Repetition of thought. So visualize that life for 5 minutes, first thing when you wake up in the morning and right before you fall asleep at night. All the science suggests that when you visualize as you're falling asleep or right when you wake up, you're still in that groggy headspace, right? Your brain is in the right frequency. I'm not going to dive into all the science, but you are in the right frequency that those thoughts will go right in your subconscious as you're falling asleep and right as you wake up. So visualize twice a day for 5 minutes. So 10 minutes total a day to visualize what that life looks like and how it feels to be that person. You do that for 3 months every day. Watch what happens. Most people will do it for a day,
right?
Maybe a week. Yeah. You do that every day for 3 months. I'm telling you, your life will be different. Period.
Love that.
Super.
If you want it bad enough.
Right.
I don't have time. You don't have 10 minutes? Give me a break. Of course. What are we talking about?
You made time working a full-time job a sick kid in the hospital, a caring, loving wife, taking care of that sick kid, and building a business on top of that. There's always time if it's important enough to you.
Exactly.
That's why when we hear that, we don't accept it. Like you can make time if you want to make time. You just don't want to. You don't want it bad enough. That's it. And that's okay. It's not for everyone. But hopefully we're speaking to some people that are just like, oh, it is for me. I want it. I want it. And they need that little extra, right? So
somebody told me this a long time ago and I held on to it as a belief. It was like, if I can live the next 2 years of my life like most people won't, I can live the rest of my life like most people can't. And that was 100% true.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's phenomenal. I got one that's where it's everybody wants to make baller money. Very few people want to do what it takes to get there. And that's not just work hard. I mean, I specifically had to overcome that one. You got to witness that journey for me as well. It's not just working hard. It's thinking differently, dreaming more, accepting the idea that I don't have to be the only one that works hard on this. I can cast a vision. Yeah. I can bring people to board. And honestly, that's what I need to do if I'm going to sustain this. I can't do it on my own.
And is learning what actually needs to get done versus staying busy doing the things that you're comfortable doing, right? After coaching a lot of people, some people, they fall into two camps. Like you are more of a sales guy. So like you were comfortable like doing more like sales stuff, talking to people, closing deals. But then you're like, all right, I got to get all this stuff implemented in systems and process. And it's like nails on a chalkboard. The other camp is really good with systems and process, and they'll tinker with their SOPs and do all this crap. And then they resist going out and getting more business. You got to identify like what is actually going to move the needle, because there's a difference between being busy and being productive and getting yourself to do the things that are productive, whether you feel like doing them or not. That's the game.
Yep.
And when the why is strong enough, you're like, okay, it sucked. I literally got doors slammed in my face when I was door knocking and people telling me to get the hell off their property. It was humiliating. It sucked. But I kept thinking about my kid on an oxygen tank in a hospital. And I was like, I don't give a shit. I will knock until I get somebody to say yes, period.
For you at that moment, the fear of not acting was greater than the fear of acting.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to get to.
And you get to play with it. Like the carrot and the stick. The carrot's nice, but we will do way more to avoid pain. So if you have kids and they're perfectly healthy, which I hope they are, and you're listening to this, how do you get leverage on yourself to build this thing and make it a must? Well, when your kid is asking you about what they can be when they grow up and you tell them anything they want to be and you're not doing it, you're a freaking fraud. You're a fraud.
Oof.
So set the tone and set the example that mommy or daddy prove to you that you can do anything you want. And stop telling your kid that they can do anything they want if you're not willing to go out and do it for yourself. It's a lie. So use that as the stick. Your kids will emulate you. You could tell them stuff till you're blue in the face, but they watch what you do. They watch how you operate. So if you're not setting the example, they know. They're not dumb.
Yeah.
They know if you're settling. They know if you hate your job and you're just going. You're teaching them that, hey, it doesn't matter. You have to make money. So suck it up. You're going to have to go get a job that you don't like to pay the bills. That's the example that you're setting. And it's a lie. So be the example. Find ways to get leverage on yourself.
Find ways to get leverage on yourself. That's I like that one.
That's amazing.
I'm getting fired up, man. I need to do some push-ups or something.
Yeah. I got my workout in earlier this morning. I had to. I was
everybody down. Give Mike 20 if this fires you up.
Yeah, get a little movement. Little movement creates some energy, right? Like that's part of it too. I mean, there's so many different ways that we could talk about this for folks that are listening. And like I said, I got a feeling that we'll probably do one or two more of these at some point in the upcoming year, because you are a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information. And
the other thing that I will say is it doesn't get easier the bigger you go. Like people think that it gets easier or that that you don't get nervous. I remember I took a public speaking course years ago, and the guy said the butterflies never go away. You just get them to fly in unison now. Like you get them to fly in the flying V, right?
Yeah.
And it's 100% true, right? Because you're nervous as hell at the beginning. You're knocking on door. You're doing whatever you got to do. And then at every stage of the game, like the first hotel I did, I was terrified, right? Now we're doing a whole ground up development deal. Like, is that scary? Yeah, I'm going to do it anyway because I've learned these skills of how to get past that fear and what tools I need to pull on and who I need around me to make sure that that project goes as planned. Right? So the butterflies never go away. You just learn to deal with them better.
That's such a great point because it makes me think about fear. And I was raised in a lot of environments that taught if you feel unsettled, it must mean it's not okay for you. Like if you don't have peace, that means you're going down the wrong path. So what do you think, how do you, there's a couple ways we can take this conversation, but how do you discern between, I'm just scared to actually do the jump. I'm just scared to do that because I might fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of poverty, fear of sickness, etc. All the ones that the three of us know about. How do you navigate that? Because that can, like you said, it stops people dead in their tracks for a variety of reasons.
Everything is perspective. So my grandfather's going through, he's got like stage 3 or stage 4 cancer now. And so I've been helping my dad clean out his house because anyway, he moved back into his house. He's going through treatment. And as we were cleaning out the house, I found this really cool plaque that was in French. And I knew that my great grandfather fought in World War I and he got wounded. He got shot in the head and he survived. And they literally had to do surgery on him on the battlefield to pull the bullet out with no anesthesia.
Holy
and I
smokes.
found the medal that he got. And my dad gave it to me and it's hanging in my office next door. And so when I look at that now, it's a reminder of perspective around what fear actually is, right? Fear of rejection versus fear of getting shot in the head on a battlefield in a country that this happened in Belgium, fighting the Germans to like push him back in a war that he probably didn't even give a shit about. He was out there like getting shot in the face. That's a legitimate reason for fear. Your fear of rejection is completely irrational. Worst case scenario, assuming you're living in the United States right now and you try this venture and you go all in and you leave your job and it all goes to shit, what is the likelihood that you will go back and find a job to replace your income in the next 3 to 6 months max? You're not going to die.
Right.
You're not going to go homeless. So it's all just this made up crap in your head.
And the stories that are told.
Look at it from a different perspective. Yeah. Like, what are you really afraid of? You know what my biggest fear is? Being my grandfather's age, being at my house, sitting in a rocking chair, looking back at my life, being like, I wish I had the balls to go for it. That is my biggest fear. And I will not have that fear now because I just go for it.
I love that.
So many people, you can read the book, Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Number 1, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself. Regret number 1.
Wow.
Just go for it. You're not going to die. What do you have to lose?
Wow. Because, you know, I said this to Darryl a few weeks ago. I was getting frustrated with LinkedIn, actually. I was getting frustrated with seeing the messages and seeing the conversations and seeing the comments of people. And I was like, this is the new social media trap, but done on a scale to do what you just described. The fear that is consistently being shared over and over and over again, and causing people to be stuck in the rat race, right? That term that we all know. And that is such a powerful message. And it's a great thing to ask yourself, what am I actually afraid of? And what is fear to me? What am I actually afraid of? Because probably crap. It's probably nothing really that serious.
Yeah. Somebody's going to say no.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
What are you talking about?
Right.
I years ago, I don't know, and I'll probably date myself a little bit on this. There was a show on Comedy Central. I'm with Busey. You guys remember that? I don't know, you guys, if you don't remember that. It's with Gary Busey, and it was like a comedy sketch thing. It was silly and stupid, but there was a bit that they did, and I don't know why it stuck with me, but it did. And Gary Busey's talking through like a motivational talk to the guy the one that's I'm with Busey. He's talking to him. He's trying to motivate him. And he did say something that stuck with me. And he said, fear, false emotions appearing real.
Yeah.
He goes, that's what fear is. And he just broke it as an acronym. And I go, I might have been like 8 years old watching Comedy Central. Probably shouldn't have even been watching it. I don't even know. But I don't even know how old I was.
Mom.
Yeah, it was a while ago. And I just remember that acronym. And it's exactly that. I mean, like Mike, you said it perfect. Perfect. Especially if you live in the US, right? Anything that you're feeling right now, any fear, it's probably just an emotion. It's a false one, more than likely, like 9 out of 10 of the times. So go for it. Just go for it. If you got this calling, got to do it. Got to make it happen.
That's it, man. You just got to make a decision. Just decide. Draw the line in the sand and say, I'm not going to live like this anymore. Period. And then just put one foot in front of the other. One step, the next step, and the next step. And change your environment. Get around the right people. It will make things, it's not going to be easy, but it will make it a lot easier for you to embody this new version of you and actually go for it.
That is powerful, powerful advice. I was taking notes off to the side, so I hope everyone else was. Yep, Darryl too. Yep. We're big pen to paper people. And any last closing thoughts from you, Mike, besides that, which could probably just be the mic drop right there?
The first thing I would recommend for everybody is to just give yourself some space to think and get clear about what you actually want. Like I said, I've coached a lot of people over the years. And when I ask people what they want, they typically say one of two things. I want financial freedom and I want to travel. That's great, but that is way too vague. So one, what does financial freedom actually mean? What is your freedom number? What is your dream lifestyle? How much does it cost to have that dream lifestyle? And then you can start to reverse engineer the path to get to that lifestyle. So like freedom stage 1 is you get your business income to cover your current lifestyle expenses so you can get out of your job. That's freedom stage 1. Freedom stage 2 is you get your passive income to replace your current lifestyle. That's freedom stage 2. And then freedom stage 3 is when you get your passive income to cover your dream lifestyle. That's the financial freedom that everybody wants, but they don't connect the dots. They try and go from employee to passive income is greater than your expenses. That's a very challenging thing to do unless you make a lot of money and live on very little. So to me, the most linear path, the path that I did, was I started a service-based business, scaled that to the point that I could get out of my job, scaled it again so that I had extra income to invest in passive assets like real estate. And now I'm expanding that portfolio to continue to expand closer to my dream lifestyle. That's the path to go from W-2 to dream lifestyle with passive income. But stage 1 is to set up that business income first. But know why you want it and then just surround yourself with the right people. It's the ultimate cheat code. It's the who, not how. It's the one thing I wish they taught me in school. Instead of spending 12 hours a day in the library to make sure I could graduate with a 4.0, I should have been building relationships with other people that had skills that were complementary to mine, so that when I got out of school, maybe I could have started a business venture or figured out a way to add value to those people and scale a business that way. They don't teach you that in school, but that's the real cheat code.
Mic drop there. And I mean MIC, although Mike with the mic drop. That's what I did. I just realized what I did.
Great stuff, Mike. Thank you so much for today. Where can people find you? What are you working on right now? That's huge. I know you get a whole bunch of stuff that you're working on, but let the listeners know where they can find you for sure.
Yeah, they can. Probably the best place to connect with me is on Instagram. It's at Mike.Sjogren, SJOGREN. We've got the Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast. I'm going to be launching a new podcast I'm super excited about later this quarter called What I Wish I Learned in School, where I can talk a lot more about some of the stuff we were covering today. Projects, I am doing a new ground-up development hotel in the Outer Banks, which I'm super excited about. We've got a few investor spots left if anybody's looking for some passive investments. It's a $22.5 million project right on the beach in the Outer Banks, 47 key hotel, restaurant, event space, beachside bathhouse with a roof deck. It's sick. I'm really excited about that project. We've got a private equity group that we're just rolling out to do some consolidations and help some of our members exit their management portfolios. We just finished building out this 10,000 square foot facility that I'm sitting in now called the Freedom Factory, where we're doing regular live events here, trainings on how to get out of your job, how to scale your real estate business, whether it's STRs or hotels. Yeah, man, I'm just excited. Like there's just a lot of cool stuff going on, a lot of amazing people I get to surround myself with on a daily basis, and get to have fun conversations with you guys. So yeah, Instagram is definitely the easiest way to connect with me. We also have a free Facebook group, Short-Term Rental Secrets. We have live trainings in there every single week to help you launch, automate, and scale a short-term rental business if you're interested in that. And yeah, man, I'm just super grateful for all of the challenges that I went through to get me to this point. And somebody told me a long time ago, your mess becomes your message. And I'm just grateful that it's helped a lot of people, get out of the rat race. We'll continue to do so. So thank you guys so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike, Darryl. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
We'd love to hear your story on how you quit the quota. So please reach out so we can feature your story.